Right then, so I'm guessing if you've clicked on this video, you're a new player to Fallout 76. That's brilliant, we're glad to have you. I'm also going to hazard a guess that you're looking for some advice, general tips, and, you know, a little bit of help at getting started in the game. Now, I don't claim to be an expert, but hopefully this video will cover most of the basics, so let's get into it. Okay then, so you've just completed the tutorial, you've created your character, hopefully he's, just as handsome as mine is. Jesus, that's horrific. And you've stepped out of the vault into the world of 76. Now, the first tip that I can give you is ignore the hunger and thirst bar. Right? Just ignore it. It really isn't a major mechanic in the game. Like in DayZ, if you don't eat or drink, you'll die. In 76, you're not gonna do. Now, yes, you do get some buffs for being well-fed and well-hydrated, but seriously, don't think you're gonna drop dead if you don't keep them full. You'll be absolutely fine. Don't let it distract you too much. Another bit of advice I'll give you before you set off anywhere, right? Go into your game settings and turn on pacifist mode. Now, you can turn this off at a later date if you're feeling a little bit spicy and want to do some PvP. However, trust me when I say avoid it unless you know what you're doing. It's a minefield in this game. It needs a serious overhaul. The only reason I suggest turning it on now is because you're a low level, you're not 100% sure how the game works, and there is arseholes out there who will target you for your junk. Which brings me nicely onto my next point. Stash all your junk, guys. Stash it all. That is the one commodity that people can take off you when they kill you, or they get you in a trap camp, or you just die in the wasteland to the various creatures that are there. Like I say, junk is the only thing that you can lose. You don't lose your weapons, you don't lose your armor, but it can be frustrating. Some of it's really hard to get, and if you've been on a run and you lose it all, it's a kick in the penis. So yeah, make sure you stash it. Now, how do you stash it, I hear you're asking? Well, that's a very good question. You've got two options. You can either put them in a stash box. Funnily enough, you can find these at train stations, the overseer camp, you can find them in other players' camps, and in your own when you actually get round to building one. Option B requires payment, and by payment I mean Fallout First. This gives you access to a junk stash. Now, it works in exactly the same way as a normal stash box, but it has a limitless capacity. You can put as much in as you want, and it stops your normal stash box from getting filled up to the brim with shit. It's one of them. You can live without it, but it does help to have it. Bloody hell, that were a lot, wasn't it? We've not even left the vault area yet, and I'm bombarding you with stuff. But trust me, if there's anything that you take from this, anything at all, get into the habit of stashing your junk. I know I've said it multiple times now, but trust me, it will bite you in the arse eventually if you don't do it. Ask me how I know. Right then, so we've covered the basics. What would I advise doing now? Well, personally, I'd start the main quest lines. There's two of them. You don't have to finish them. You don't really even have to start them. However, I would advise it. Getting these quest lines done actually introduces you to the story of the game. Some people are not asked about that, but if you're playing an RPG, I find it kind of important. And as well as this, they give you access to items and factions and even currency systems that you won't be able to get unless you do the quests. Fortunately, it's very easy to get these started. You've just got to find these two ladies here, and they are literally directly down the steps from Vault 76. You couldn't miss them if you tried. Now, one thing to keep your eye out for whilst you're making your way down to these two is the donations box. That's this little red bad boy here. As the name suggests, yeah, this box is mainly used by older players, and they fill it up with unwanted items. Items that new players just like you will find very useful. Now, as well as this one outside of Vault 76, they're also at train stations too, so whilst you are a low level, make sure you go to them, fill your boots, take what you need. That's what they're there for. Anyway, back to the main two quest givers. Went off on a bit of a tangent there. Like I said, it's these two ladies here. Once you've had a chat with them, they'll point you in the direction of the Wayward. That's down here on the map. Now, once you've been given this location, head on down there and speak to this lady called Duchess. She will set you off on both of the main quest lines. Like I said, there is two of them. There's the OG one, which revolves around a plague that you've got to stop in Appalachia. And the second one, which was added with the Wastelanders update, will introduce you to new factions, gold bullion, and a load of other magnificent shit. Like I say, guys, you don't have to do them. You could just wander around killing shit and, you know, doing your own merry thing. However, I would advise it. Just before we move on from quests as well, these two aren't the only ones yet. There's a load of side quests. There's things called expeditions. I'm not going to get into them here because as a beginner, you're not going to be touching them for a while. But yeah, like I say, there's a load of side quests as well. You'll probably encounter them naturally And you also encounter something called events as well. They are popping up all the time across Appalachia. You'll get a little notification pop up on your screen when they do fire. If you just want to have a look for yourself though, pull up your Pip-Boy, have a look on your map, and they'll be highlighted by an exclamation mark that's flashing. You can also join the event directly too by using this little feature on your map. That's a recent-ish addition, but trust me, it's a welcome one. It has made the game a lot better in that department. Oh, another thing I almost forgot. Daily and weekly challenges for the seasons. Yes, Fallout 76 does have what you'd call a battle pass, I guess, and it's just actually been revamped. What you do is you complete daily and weekly challenges to unlock tickets or tokens. You also level up the battle pass while you're unlocking said tickets and tokens too. You can then go into it and you can choose items you want to buy using the ticket. Personally, I actually prefer this because it lets you skip a load of shit that you wouldn't use. Some people don't like it. However, everyone's got their own opinion, aren't they? All of this is accessible through the main menu at the side here. As you can see, I'm going through it all now, giving you a rough rundown on it. It's just something else to do, and like I say, you can get some pretty cool items from it. So yeah, that's a quick rundown of the events and the quest lines, and I'm guessing you're itching to get going. But wait, what are you going to do without weapons and armor? And how do you get weapons and armor? Well, it depends what you're after. Normal guns, normal melee weapons, armor and whatnot, they can be found all over the wasteland. You can find them in stash boxes, you can kill enemies and loot them, you can craft weapons and armor, you can buy it from player vendors. I mean, shit, you can even get it from NPC vendors. However, I would advise against that last option because they're usually overly priced and not worth the money. It's exactly the same for ammo as well. However, another tip for you here, do not buy it from the ammo vending machines unless you're very bloody desperate. It is massively overpriced from them. Just don't do it. Seriously, just don't. Now, this abundance of weapons and armor is a good thing. Yeah, I'd advise collecting them all and selling them or scrapping them. It's a good way to make money, and it's a good way to get junk as well. Now, if you are going to be selling your weapons, make sure you have the hard bargain perk card equipped. That'll give you better prices at vendors. And if you're scrapping them, make sure you have the scrapper perk card equipped. I know you're probably thinking, what the bloody hell are perk cards? We'll get into that more later. Now, the other type of weapons in-game are the ones you're going to want eventually. These are called legendary weapons. Now, legendary weapons are exactly the same as the normal version, but they have some spicy effects on them. For example, if we take a look at this fixer here, it's got quad ammo capacity, it's got 15% crit refill, and it's got faster fire rate. This is just one combination in an absolute shit ton of combinations. Trust me, there is so many of them. Trust me, when you find your first legendary, well, when you get your first level 50 legendary, you're not going to need normal guns anymore. They're literally only going to be good to sell or to scrap for components. Also, when you scrap certain guns, not all of them, it unlocks certain attachments for said gun, if that makes any sense. So again, if we take this fixer for example, if I had another 6 of these in my stash box that I didn't need, I could scrap them and potentially learn an attachment for it. That could be an automatic receiver, it could be a silencer, it could be a different stock. You get where I'm going, don't you? Aye, getting good legendary weapons and armor is pretty much endgame. And the way to get them is actually quite simple. Again, it involves killing legendary enemies. Completing some events will give you a decent legendary gun. You can buy them from player vendors, and you can also create them as well. You can craft them. This is something you're not going to be doing as a beginner, but a quick rundown for when you get to that stage. It's all to do with script and legendary modules. Now, script is what you get from cashing in legendary weapons and armor, and you do it at these machines here. You can find them at train stations or the Rusty Pick. Now, once you've cashed your weapons and armor in for script, you can go to the purveyor, who's also in the Rusty Pick, and buy something called legendary modules. This is just one ingredient of what you need to create a legendary weapon or armor. Now, for some armor, you don't need anything else, but for most of it, and for 99.9% of the weapons as well, you need something called legendary cores too. These can be unlocked by completing events, you know, the ones that pop up around the map. Like I say, guys, this is a bit premature for a beginner's guide, but at least you'll know when you actually come to it. It can be quite confusing, you see. Now then, having a great gun and fantastic armor is bloody spot on, yeah? But it's worthless if you don't have a good build. Now, what is a build, I hear you ask? This can be a bit difficult to explain, and there's a load of different ways you could go with it. But to put it simply, I guess, it's the way that your character's set up to fight with a specific weapon. For example, if I wanted to be a rifleman, then I would set my character up as a rifleman. If I wanted to use an automatic rifle, I'd set my character up as a commando build. Do you get what I'm saying? It's pretty much like classes in most of your online RPGs, yeah? However, Fallout does it in a rather unique way. We'll get into that more later. Now, it doesn't just stop with what type of weapon you're using either. The legendary effect is also a massive player too. Say if you was going to use this Bloodied Hole with Fire, there is literally nothing stopping you from picking it up even if you've got a character that's designed to do melee attacks. Yeah, you could still use it. We wouldn't be getting the maximum potential out of it though. Like I said before, we'd need a character designed to use heavy weapons, but with this being a bloodied one, we'd also have to design our character to work properly with that legendary effect. Do you get what I'm saying? So, bloodied, you have to run at really low health to get the maximum damage out of it. So I would set my character up to complement that legendary effect. And this goes for all of them as well. Junkies, overeaters, Gormons, the list is endless. There is so many combinations, but it all boils down to the same thing. Match your build to the weapons and armor that you want to use. Don't try and be a jack of all trades, it will not work. Now, that's not to say you can't create multiple different classes. So you could have a heavy gunner's build and a rifleman build, for example, but don't do a class that incorporates both. You're not going to be getting the full benefits from either weapon that way. Trust me when I say, yeah, pick a build and stick to it. If you do want to have multiple ones, that's fine. Just create different loadouts. You can even switch them out dead easy as well. You just use one of these machines at train stations, in players' camps, in your own camp, and you can literally swap between each and every build that you've got. Right, so now we've covered that rather intricate subject. I can hear you asking, how do you make a build? What is a build? How do you even bloody level up TNG? Well, do you know, like I said, Fallout does it different? Well, it does, but a lot of it is still the same as any other online game of this genre. You kill shit, you get XP. You complete missions, you get XP. You craft shit, you get XP. Can you see where I'm going? Where Fallout differs is its use of perk cards. Now, it's pretty much like Skyrim, for example. Say if you want to go down the alchemy tree, naturally, you'd assign points to alchemy. In 76, however, if you wanted to be a commando rifleman, you'd first unlock the commando perk card. You can then improve it more, but then there's other commando perk cards that you can unlock as well. See what I mean? It's different, innit? And you can only assign a certain amount of points to each category. So, for example, charisma, you can only put 15 points in it. Strength, 15 points. Luck, 15 points. You get where I'm going. Now, you can improve this with legendary perk cards. Again, something I'm not going to go into. That's not anything you'll be touching as a beginner. But even with them, you can still only assign a certain amount of cards to one category, depending on the points you've got in that category. I hope I'm making sense here. I know it sounds bloody confusing as shit, but that's because it is until you get used to it. And trust me, you will get used to it. To add further confusion as well, until you get to level 50, there's only a select few perk cards you can choose when you level up. So if you did decide you wanted to be a commando build, you're not always guaranteed to get a commando card every time you level up. Now, when you hit 50, that does change. You can choose what you want. But up until that point, no, it is a game of luck. As I said though, yeah, think of a build and stick with it. Any cards that you see relevant to that as you're leveling up, keep hold of them. Any that are not relevant, get rid. Also bear in mind though, again, as I mentioned before, you can have different perk loadouts. So if you was thinking of being, I don't know, a bowman build at some point, keep hold of them cards too. It won't do any harm. I know this all sounds really confusing, but when you get in the game and you see what I'm on about, it will make more sense to you. My advice would be push for level 50, and that's when you start fine-tuning things. The legendaries will also be at the max level when you hit 50 as well. Bear that in mind too. I'd advise not crafting legendary weapons until you get to level 50, because once you do get to that magic number, they're not going to be as powerful as the higher level equivalent. Does that make any sense? Of course it does. Save your modules and save your cores. Right, okay, so we've covered leveling up, we've covered starting off quest lines, we've covered events. What else is there left to do? Well, it's camp building, isn't it? Now, I'm a little biased. I do love camp building. However, I think this is the best part of the game. Hands down. Easily the best part of the game. Now, what exactly is a camp, you may be wondering? Well, it's your own little home from home in Fallout, basically. When you start off, you're not going to have much to actually work with. You're going to end up with some form of shack or something along them lines. However, the more you get into the game, and depending on whether you buy Atomic shop items or not, you can come up with some pretty mad structures. Like, seriously, the possibilities are pretty much endless. It isn't very simple, though. I'm not going into detail, but I will pre-warn you. You do have to learn a lot to get into camp building properly. Now, when you're first starting out, I would advise placing your camp down anywhere near Wayward. And there's a good reason for this. One, there's an abundance of wood. I mean, you're in the forest region, so kind of makes sense, doesn't it? And that's going to be the main commodity you're going to use to build your first camp. Another good reason for building near the Wayward, there is very little enemies. You're not going to get much here. You're also close to water. Now, water is fantastic, yeah? Initially, when you start off, you won't have this plan, but if you go to the Charleston Capitol building, I do believe, and find the water purifier plan, it's going to be a good way for you to make money early on. Seriously, guys, all you've got to do is place down a couple of water purifiers, collect the purified water, and sell it to vendors. It's as easy as that, and you will get a decent amount of money. More than enough to start you off anyway. And that's another bonus of being near Wayward, actually. You've got the Duchess. She's a vendor, so you can just take your purified water, walk across the street, and sell it to her. Dead simple. Aye, this is an area I'd recommend for anybody. You know what as well? I've just thought of another thing. The Brahmin that are next to the Wayward, if you milk them and you drink it, it's Radaway. It will clear your rads. So yeah, another little bonus. Now, in terms of your actual camp, yeah, your first one's going to be shit. I'm sorry, but it is. You're just not going to have the plans to make anything grandiose, or the resources. Fortunately, resources and plans are easy to get hold of. Resources, like I say, just pick up all the junk you see and scrap it. That is the best way of doing it, guys. You can also save resources while building by equipping the contractor perk card as well. That's a nice little tip for you. In terms of the plans, the easiest way to get hold of them is doing workshop events, capturing them and defending them. That's these little places on the map here. I will pre-warn you though, if it's already captured by somebody else and you try and capture it, it'll initiate PvP. The same as if they do that to you also. It's not really a problem. You do still get the odd person that capture them purely and simply for PvP, but it's not that widespread, guys. You won't encounter that a lot. Aye, capturing them is a really good way to get plans. I think even after capturing your first one, you get generators, defensive rails, a water pump. You do get a lot even for your first time. Now then, just before we move on from workshops, a couple more things about them. We might as well cover it while we're on the subject. You can build in them, right? But just don't bother. You do get a certain amount of resources in them to build. However, once you burn through them, you're going to be using your own shit, and it's pointless. As soon as you log off that server, that workshop build will not carry on to the next server you go on. So yeah, the only thing you should be building there, if you want to do, is resource extractors. But again, I've done it in the past, but it's usually easier to just go foraging, in all honesty with you. Anyhow, back to the plans. Yeah, as well as getting them from workshops, you can buy them from players. You can get them from NPC vendors. The White Springs is a good place for them, actually. You can find them scattered around, and you can also get them from events as well. Aye, once you get a nice collection of plans and you can start filling your camp up more, you will get into it, trust me. So just before we wrap up camp building, a bit of advice for you. You don't need 72,000 turrets. They'll just take up budget. Don't bother. You don't need a whole field of crops. You just don't. It's just wasting budget and resources. And if you do really want to get into camp building, complete Abby's bunker questline and get the flamethrower trap. I'm not going into detail. Watch any of my videos on camp building. You'll see why. And yeah, that about covers it from me. I probably missed some stuff off, but it should give you a good rundown of the basics when you're first leaving the vault. Is there anything else I can cover? Right, okay, actually, fixing weapons. I see a lot of people saying, why can't you fix weapons and armor at workbenches? Well, you can. There is an option when you're actually in it, and it's just down here. See, on PlayStation, you just click square and it'll repair it at the workbench. Not sure why it is on Xbox, but yeah, you get what I'm saying. Another thing which is actually quite useful, I don't think a lot of people know about this, the White Springs. If you go to the golf course and you drink from this fountain here, it'll get rid of all your diseases. How nice is that, eh? One more thing that I can think of trading in 76. Do not trade valuable items. And if you're going to do it, use a courier. There is actual trusted courier pages on Facebook of people that do it for a job in 76, and it's to stop people getting ripped off. You see, quite simply, the only way you can trade in 76 is for caps, but there's some weapons and armor and items that are worth more than the maximum amount of caps you can carry in game, which is 40,000. Now, in this situation, the only way to trade would be one person would drop their weapon, the other person would drop their weapon or armor or item, whatever it is, and then pick each other's up. You can see the problem with this, and there is a lot of scammers in that department, believe me. So yeah, just be aware, do not trade valuable items unless you're using a courier or you trust a person. Don't say you haven't been warned. In all honesty though, right, the 76 community is one of the best I've been in. You do get the scammers every now and again, you do get the toxic bastards, but overall, it is mint. Everyone gets on, people help you out, and yeah, it is a decent place to be. I hope I've covered everything that I can in this video and it has given you some help and a little bit of advice, but like I say, I've probably missed some out. As we say in the north, I will love you and leave you, and I'll catch you next one. Have fun, everybody.